The deep space communication station orbited quietly around Earth's moon. Inside the metal walls, rows of computers blinked with lights from across the galaxy. Ji-won sat at her desk, watching screens full of signals from distant worlds. Most messages were boring trade reports or weather updates from human colonies. Then something different appeared on her screen. The signal was weak and filled with static. Ji-won adjusted her equipment and listened carefully. A strange voice spoke in broken universal language, the words shaking with fear. "Please, anyone who can hear this message, we need help. Our people are dying. Our worlds are burning. The Korthak Empire has come to our space. They destroy everything. We have no weapons. We have no army. We only want to live in peace." Ji-won's hands moved quickly over her keyboard. She had never heard of the Volani Federation before. But the fear in the voice was real. The message continued. "My name is Chancellor Thyra of the Volani Federation. We have sent this message to every star system we know. We do not ask for soldiers or weapons. We only need food, medicine, and ships to carry our people to safety. Millions of our citizens are trapped on dying worlds. Please, if there is any kindness left in this galaxy, help us." The message repeated 3 more times, then stopped. Ji-won stared at her screen for a moment. She had heard many distress calls before, but this one felt different. These people were not asking for rescue from a natural disaster or technical problem. They were asking for help against an enemy that wanted to kill them all. She pressed a button on her desk. "Admiral Minho, priority message for you." Admiral Minho arrived at the communication station 20 minutes later. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was still sharp after 40 years of military service. Ji-won played the message for him twice. "What do we know about these Volani people?" Minho asked. "Not much," Ji-won replied, pulling up files on her computer. "They live about 200 light years from here, very peaceful. They trade art and music with other worlds, no military at all. They have been sending the same message to 50 different star systems. And this Korthak Empire? Even less information. Some reports say they are very aggressive. They take over worlds and make slaves of the people. They have been expanding their territory for the last 10 years. Admiral Minho was quiet for a long time. He had seen many wars and knew that sometimes peaceful people paid the highest price when violent people decided to take what they wanted. "Send this message to Director Hana at the Humanitarian Response Division," he said finally. This is exactly the kind of situation her department was created for. Director Hana received the message 2 hours later. She was a kind woman who had spent her career helping people in need. Her department had ships designed to carry medical supplies, food, and refugees. When she heard Chancellor Thyra's plea, she immediately called a meeting of her staff. "We need to respond to this quickly," she told her team. "These people are asking for basic humanitarian aid. We can have medical ships ready to leave in 3 days." Her assistant looked worried. "Director, our ships are not designed for war zones. What if this Korthak Empire attacks our medical vessels?" "We will send them with clear humanitarian markings," Hana replied. "Even aggressive species usually respect medical ships." While Director Hana planned her humanitarian mission, Admiral Minho was having different thoughts. He called Captain Do-yun, who commanded a long-range exploration ship called the New Soul. "Do-yun, I need you to take your ship toward Volani space," the Admiral said. "Stay hidden and watch what is happening. I want to know more about this Korthak Empire." Captain Do-yun was a smart officer who had explored the dangerous edges of human space for 15 years. His ship was fast and hard to detect. "You think there is more to this than a simple refugee crisis?" "I think when an aggressive empire starts expanding, it does not stop until someone makes them stop," Admiral Minho replied. "I want to know if they plan to keep expanding in our direction." The New Soul left Earth space the next day. It would take 2 weeks to reach the area, where the Korthak Empire was fighting the Volani Federation. During those 2 weeks, more messages arrived from Chancellor Thyra. Each message sounded more desperate than the last. "The Korthak fleets have destroyed our colony on Volani Prime," one message said. 3 million people are trapped on the surface. Their ships block all escape routes. We have sent our few remaining civilian vessels to save who we can, but it is not enough. Another message came 3 days later. "The enemy has used some kind of weapon on our agricultural worlds. The plants are dying. Our people are starving. We have never hurt anyone. Why do they do this to us?" Director Hana worked day and night to prepare her humanitarian mission. She gathered medical supplies, food packages, and transport ships that could carry refugees. Her plan was simple and good. Arrive in Volani space, help as many people as possible, and bring refugees back to safety. But Admiral Minho was thinking about bigger problems. If the Korthak Empire was expanding, they might not stop with the Volani Federation. Human colonies in the Outer Rim were not heavily defended. Earth had always believed that being far from the galactic center would keep them safe from major conflicts. The message from Captain Do-Yun changed everything. "Admiral, you need to see this," came the encrypted transmission from the new Soul. "I am watching Korthak fleet movements from long range. They are not just conquering Volani space. They are building up forces for something bigger. Their supply lines extend toward the Outer Rim, toward us." Admiral Minho stared at the tactical display on his screen. The Korthak Empire was not just destroying the Volani Federation. They were using Volani space as a staging area for further expansion. If someone did not stop them in Volani territory, human colonies would be next. He picked up his secure communication device and made a call that would change everything. "This is Admiral Minho requesting immediate connection to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha level. We have a situation that requires full Terra defense protocol." On the other end of the communication line, computers began to wake up systems that had been sleeping for decades. Deep in hidden bases throughout human space, massive ships received activation signals. The Terra Defense Protocol was not about humanitarian aid or peaceful exploration. It was about war. The Volani Federation had asked for food and medicine. They were about to receive something very different. They were about to learn what happened when someone threatened humanity and its friends. But first, they would have to survive long enough to see the human response arrive. Fleet Admiral Kijun had been waiting for this call his entire career. He stood in the command center of Terra Defense Command, looking at displays showing the locations of every human military vessel in the galaxy. Most people thought these were exploration ships, cargo vessels, and research stations. They were wrong. "Activate Terra Defense Protocol," he said calmly into his microphone. "All sleeping assets are now awake. All hidden bases are now active. All disguised vessels are to reveal their true nature." Across human space, things began to change. The cargo ship Busan Merchant suddenly opened panels along its hull, revealing rows of missile launchers. The research station New Jeju extended. Massive gun barrels from what everyone thought were telescope housings. The mining facility on Kepler 442b lifted off from the planet's surface, showing that it had been a disguised starship all along. Director Hana was still planning her humanitarian mission when Admiral Minho arrived at her office. She looked up from her desk, surprised to see him. "Admiral, I am glad you came. We can have medical ships ready to leave tomorrow. The Volani people need help as soon as possible." "Your humanitarian mission is still important," Admiral Minho said quietly. "But it is now part of something much larger." He handed her a data pad. When she read it, her face went pale. "You are expanding my mission into a full military operation? Admiral, these people asked for medical aid, not an invasion force. These people asked for help against an enemy that plans to attack human space next," Admiral Minho replied. "Captain Do-Yun's intelligence reports show Korthak supply lines extending toward our outer colonies. This is not just about saving the Volani Federation. This is about stopping a threat before it reaches our people." While they talked, Captain Suman was preparing her ship for the most dangerous mission of her career. The Busan's Pride looked like a small cargo vessel. but it was actually the most advanced stealth ship in the human fleet. Her job was to sneak into Korthak territory and gather information about their military strength. Remember, you are officially a humanitarian scout ship, Admiral Kajun told her during the mission briefing. Your job is to locate Volani survivors and refugee camps. Unofficially, you will map every Korthak base, count every warship, and find their weak points. Captain Suman nodded. She had spent 10 years learning how to make her ship invisible to enemy sensors. How close do you want me to get to their main fleets? As close as you need to get accurate intelligence. But remember, if they detect you, the entire operation is compromised. The Busan's pride left human space that night, flying dark and silent toward the war zone. Behind it, the largest military fleet in human history was slowly coming together. Colonel Hyunwoo was busy preparing something the galaxy had never seen before, a human ground combat force. Most space conflicts were fought between ships, with the losing side simply surrendering when their fleet was destroyed. Humans had different ideas about warfare. Listen carefully, he told his officers. Most alien species do not understand planetary combat. They think controlling space around a planet means they control the planet. We are going to teach them that they are wrong. The 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force was not like anything else in the galaxy. Human soldiers were trained to fight in any environment: vacuum, high gravity, toxic atmosphere, or extreme temperature. They could operate for weeks without resupply and coordinate attacks across entire continents. Sir, what if the enemy surrenders before we reach the ground? Asked Major Su-Yung. Then our job becomes easier, Colonel Hyunwoo replied. But based on intelligence reports, the Korthak Empire does not believe in surrender. They fight until they are all dead or until they have killed everyone else. We need to be prepared for that kind of enemy. Meanwhile, Captain Suman was discovering just how right the intelligence reports were. Her ship had reached the edge of Volani space, and what she saw shocked her. Entire planets were burning. Korthak ships surrounded worlds like Volani Prime, preventing any escape while they systematically destroyed cities from orbit. She watched through her ship's sensors as Korthak landing craft descended to a refugee camp on Volani IV. The aliens were not taking prisoners or demanding surrender. They were simply killing everyone they found. This is not conquest, she whispered to her crew. This is extermination. Her communication officer looked up from his station. Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures moving toward the outer rim. Korthak fleet movements, heading in the direction of human space. Captain Suman made recordings of everything. She saw. The Korthak Empire had over 300 warships in Volani space, with more arriving every day. But these were not just occupation forces. They were staging areas for a much larger operation. She sent encrypted messages back to fleet, Admiral Kajun every day. Each message painted a clearer picture of what humanity was facing. Korthak military doctrine appears to be based on overwhelming individual ship power, one report said. Their vessels are larger and more heavily armed than standard galactic designs. However, they show poor coordination between ships and rely on simple attack formations. Another message was more disturbing. Korthak treatment of civilian populations is systematic extermination. They are not interested in controlling territory or enslaving populations. They want empty space to expand into. Recommend immediate military response. Fleet Admiral Kijun read every report carefully. The enemy was powerful, but they had weaknesses. Korthak ships were individually strong but poorly coordinated. Their commanders seemed to prefer simple tactics over complex strategies. Most importantly, they had never fought humans before. They expect their enemies to fight like everyone else in the galaxy, he told his staff. Ship-to-ship combat with boarding actions and honor duels. They have never faced coordinated fleet tactics, missile swarms, or electronic warfare. The human fleet was growing larger every day. Ships that had been disguised as civilian vessels for decades revealed their true nature. The container ship Seoul Express opened up to show 3 squadrons of fighter craft. The research vessel Daegu Discovery extended gun turrets that had been hidden inside fake scientific equipment, but the most impressive sight was the emergence of the heavy warships. These vessels had been built in secret shipyards in the outer rim, far from the shipping lanes where other species might notice them. They were huge ships designed for one purpose: destroying enemy fleets. The dreadnought Incheon's Thunder was 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a small moon. The carrier New Ulsan could launch 500 fighter craft at once. The battleship Gwangju's Hammer had armor thick enough to survive direct hits from the largest enemy weapons. "Sir, the fleet is ready," reported Admiral Kujun's aide. 847 vessels total, 52 capital ships, 231 cruisers and destroyers, and 564 support vessels. Admiral Kujun looked at the tactical display showing his entire fleet. It was more military power than had been assembled in this part of the galaxy for centuries. "What is our estimated travel time to Valani space?" he asked. 18 days at maximum speed. And Captain Suman's latest intelligence report? The Korthak Empire is planning to begin their expansion toward human space in 25 days. They are waiting for additional reinforcements to arrive. Admiral Kujun smiled grimly. The enemy thought they had more time to prepare. They thought the Valani Federation's plea for help would be ignored, like so many other calls for aid in galactic history. They were about to learn that humans answered their calls for help differently than other species. "Send the fleet movement order," Admiral Kujun commanded. "All ships are to jump to Valani space immediately. Tell Director Hana that her humanitarian mission is now the forward element of the largest military operation in human history." "Sir, what should we tell the Valani Federation?" "Tell them help is on the way. Tell them to hold on just a little longer. And tell them they are about to see what happens when someone threatens humanity's friends." The human fleet began to move. 847 warships, carrying enough destruction to remake the balance of power in the galaxy, were heading toward a small, peaceful federation that had asked only for food and medicine. The Korthak Empire was about to discover that they had made a terrible mistake. Chancellor Thyra stood on the bridge of the last Valani command ship, watching her homeworld burn through the viewing screen. Valani Prime had once been a beautiful world of crystal cities and floating gardens. Now it was a smoking ruin under constant bombardment from Korthak warships. "Chancellor, we are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of our system," reported her science officer, his voice shaking with exhaustion. They had been running from the Korthak fleet for 3 weeks, trying to coordinate evacuations while their civilization died around them. "More Korthak reinforcements?" Thyra asked, though she already knew the answer would not matter. Whether it was 10 ships or 100, her people had no way to fight them. "I do not think so, Chancellor. The energy patterns are different. These ships are using technology I have never seen before." On the sensor display, dots of light began appearing at the system's edge. First 10, then 50, then hundreds. The science officer stared at his instruments in confusion. "Chancellor, I count. Over 800 vessels. They are moving in perfect formation toward the inner system." Thyra felt her heart sink. 800 ships could only mean one thing. The Korthak Empire had sent their main battle fleet to finish what they started. Her people's suffering would finally end, but not in the way she had hoped. Then something impossible happened. "Chancellor, incoming communication. It is not from the Korthak Empire." A human face appeared on the communication screen. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "This is Commander Jamin of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. We received your distress call, Chancellor Thyra. We are here to help." Thyra stared at the screen in shock. "Human? But you are hundreds of light years from here. How did you arrive so quickly?" "We came as fast as we could when we learned of your situation. Chancellor, I need you to broadcast the locations of all Valani survivors to our fleet. We are going to get your people to safety." "I do not understand. We asked for medical supplies and transport ships. You brought a military fleet? Commander Jamin's expression grew serious. Chancellor, when someone hurts our friends, we do not just send bandages. We send a message that it will not happen again. Across the Volani system, Korthak commanders were having their own moment of confusion. Admiral Vector of the Korthak 10th Fleet had been preparing to finish the destruction of Volani Prime when his sensors detected the approaching human vessels. What species are these humans? He demanded from his intelligence officers. Why, have I never heard of them? They are a young species from the Outer Rim, came the reply. Very primitive, no significant military power. They mostly trade in simple goods and raw materials. Admiral Vector looked at his tactical display showing over 800 enemy vessels. Those numbers do not look primitive to me. Sir, our intelligence reports say they have no experience with real warfare. They have never fought against a major military power. Their ships are probably converted cargo vessels with light armament. The Admiral studied the formation of approaching ships. They moved with a precision that impressed even him, but his officers were probably right. Young species always tried to look more dangerous than they actually were. All ships, attack formation, he ordered. We will destroy this human fleet quickly, then finish our work here. Captain Yunji commanded the human cruiser Dejon's Fist, and she had been waiting her entire career for a moment like this. The Korthak fleet was arranging itself in a simple attack formation, exactly as Captain Suman's intelligence reports had predicted. All ships, this is Fleet Command, came Admiral Kijun's voice over the communication system. The enemy is moving. To engage us with standard galactic tactics, they expect us to respond with the same kind of ship-to-ship combat they are used to. Show them they are wrong. Captain Yunji smiled as she gave orders to her weapons officer. Target the lead enemy vessel, full missile spread, followed by kinetic bombardment. The Battle of Volani Prime began with something the Korthak Empire had never experienced before. Instead of the slow, formal exchange of energy weapons that characterized most galactic warfare, the human fleet opened fire with thousands of missiles launched simultaneously from hundreds of ships. Admiral Vector watched in shock as his flagships' defensive systems tried to track over 2,000 incoming projectiles. What kind of weapons are these? He demanded. His tactical officer was frantically working at his console. Sir, they are using primitive chemical explosives, but the numbers are overwhelming our point defense systems. The first wave of missiles struck the Korthak formation like a steel fist. Ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found their shields, failing under concentrated bombardment from dozens of different directions at once. But the missiles were only the beginning. Second wave, kinetic bombardment, Captain Yunji ordered. Her ship and 50 others fired tungsten rods accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. The metal projectiles had no explosive warheads, but at those velocities, they did not need them. The Korthak heavy cruiser Dominator took 3 kinetic strikes to its main hull. The impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons, tearing through armor that had been designed to resist energy beams and particle weapons. Sir, the Dominator is gone, reported Admiral Vector's communications officer, his voice filled with disbelief. The humans destroyed it in less than 30 seconds. Across the human fleet, Lieutenant Taehyung was leading his bomber squadron toward Korthak ground installations on Volani Prime. The enemy had built massive weapons platforms on the planet's surface to prevent any rescue attempts. Remember, we have Volani civilians down there, he told his pilots. Precision strikes only, no collateral damage. The human bombers dove through the planet's atmosphere while Korthak fighters tried to intercept them, but the human craft were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Empire had encountered. They used the planet's gravity and atmosphere to their advantage, pulling turns that would have torn apart most galactic fighter designs. Lieutenant Taehyung's bomber reached its target, a massive particle cannon that had been bombarding Volani cities. His precision-guided weapons struck the installation's power core, causing a controlled explosion that destroyed the weapon without harming nearby civilian shelters. Target destroyed, no civilian casualties, he reported. Around him, other bombers were systematically eliminating Korthak ground positions with the same surgical precision. In orbit, Major Su-young was coordinating the rescue of Vallani survivors from the planet's surface. Human transport ships descended through the battle zone, their hulls designed to survive in conditions that would destroy most civilian vessels. Transport 7, you have Korthak fighters closing on your position, she warned. Copy that, Control. We have the civilians aboard. Beginning evasive maneuvers. The transport ship twisted through the atmosphere like a fighter craft, its pilot using skills learned from flying through Earth's violent weather systems. Korthak pilots, trained for combat in the predictable environment of space, could not match the human pilot's ability to use atmospheric turbulence and gravity wells as defensive tools. Back in space, Admiral Vector was discovering that his fleet's individual superiority meant nothing against human tactics. Every time his ships tried to engage a human vessel in single combat, they found themselves facing coordinated attacks from multiple directions. "Sir, we have lost 40% of our fleet," his tactical officer reported. "The humans are using some kind of coordinated battle network. Their ships fight as a single unit. Then we will board their vessels and fight them in hand-to-hand combat," Admiral Vector declared. "Launch all boarding craft." It was exactly what the humans had been waiting for. Captain Yunji watched the Korthak boarding craft approach her ship and smiled grimly. "All hands, prepare to repel boarders. Remember your training." The Korthak warriors were large, strong, and experienced in ship-to-ship combat. They expected to face the kind of individual duels that characterized boarding actions throughout galactic history. Instead, they found themselves fighting humans who had learned warfare on a world where everything tried to kill them. Human Marines fought as coordinated units, using tactics developed for hunting predators in Earth's most dangerous environments. The boarding action lasted 15 minutes. When it was over, the Korthak Empire had learned something new about the species they had dismissed as primitive. "Sir, all boarding craft have been destroyed or captured," Admiral Vector's communications officer reported, his voice barely above a whisper. "We have lost 60% of our fleet. The humans are demanding our surrender." Admiral Vector looked at the tactical display showing the remnants of his once mighty fleet. In less than 6 hours, these unknown humans had destroyed more Korthak ships than the Empire had lost in the previous 10 years of expansion. "Open a communication channel," he said finally. Commander Jamin's face appeared on the screen again, but now his expression was hard as steel. "Admiral, you will withdraw all Korthak forces from Vallani space immediately. You will release any survivors you have captured. You will provide reparations for the damage you have caused to civilian populations. And if I refuse?" Commander Jamin gestured toward the tactical display, where over 700 human ships still waited in perfect formation. News of the human victory at Vallani Prime spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication networks could carry it. In the great council chambers of advanced civilizations, old and wise leaders studied reports that seemed impossible to believe. Dr. Minji stood in the medical bay of the human flagship, treating wounded Vallani refugees while trying to explain to amazed alien doctors how human medicine worked. "Your bone density is remarkable," said Dr. Thylan, the chief Vallani medical officer, "and your muscle structure is unlike anything I have studied. What kind of world did your species evolve on?" Dr. Minji looked up from the medical scanner she was using to examine a Vallani child. "We call it a Class 12 death world. Most species would die within hours of landing there." "Death world? I have never heard this term." "It means a planet where the environment itself tries to kill you," Dr. Minji explained. "Violent weather, dangerous predators, poisonous plants, unstable geology. Everything on Earth evolved to survive in conditions that would be lethal to most galactic life." Dr. Thylan studied the human doctor with new understanding. "That explains your ship designs. I noticed your vessels can operate in radiation fields and gravitational anomalies that would destroy our technology. We built our ships to survive Earth's solar flares and magnetic storms, Dr. Minji said simply. Compared to our home system, most of the galaxy is quite peaceful. While the doctors talked, Chancellor Thyra was meeting with Commander Jamin to discuss the future of her people. What she learned during that conversation would change her understanding of the galaxy forever. "Commander, I must ask you something that has been troubling me," she said. "How did you assemble such a large fleet so quickly? Our intelligence services estimated that humanity had perhaps 50 military vessels total." Commander Jamin smiled. "Your intelligence services were looking at our exploration and patrol ships. They never saw our real military." "You mean you have been hiding your military strength?" "Not hiding, preparing. We have been building ships and training crews for decades, getting ready for the day when someone would threaten human space or our allies." Chancellor Thyra felt a chill run down her spine. "How many ships do you actually have?" "Enough," Commander Jamin replied. "But Chancellor, you should know that the fleet you saw at Villani Prime was only our expeditionary force. Our main battle fleets are much larger." Meanwhile, deep in Korthak space, Emperor Corvin was learning the same lesson. The survivors of Admiral Vecthor's fleet had brought back detailed recordings of the battle, and what they showed contradicted everything the Empire believed about warfare. "These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered," reported General Thrax, the Empire's chief military strategist. "They use coordinated tactics that treat entire fleets as single weapons. Their individual ships are not particularly powerful, but their coordination multiplies their effectiveness." Emperor Corvin studied the battle recordings with growing anger. "How many ships did we lose?" "Over 200 vessels destroyed, 50 more captured. It is the worst military defeat in our history." "And how many humans did we kill?" General Thrax looked uncomfortable. "Intelligence estimates suggest fewer than 1,000 casualties across their entire fleet." The Emperor's rage was terrible to witness. The Korthak Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming military power. They had conquered dozens of star systems and enslaved millions of beings. Now, a previously unknown species had humiliated them in front of the entire galaxy. "Mobilize every ship we have," he ordered. "I want 5,000 vessels. I want every warrior in the Empire. These humans will learn what happens when they interfere with our expansion." But the humans were already moving. Admiral Dong Min commanded the Second Battle Fleet, and his ships were moving through space in a formation that would have been impossible for most species to maintain. The human vessels flew through a region known as the Crimson Nebula, where radiation storms and gravitational anomalies made navigation extremely dangerous. "Sir, Korthak intelligence reports suggest they consider this region impassable," reported his navigation officer. "Their ships cannot maintain formation in these conditions." "Good," Admiral Dongmin replied. "That means they will not expect us to attack from this direction." The human fleet was moving toward the Korthak industrial world of Draktar, where the Empire built most of its warships. If they could destroy the shipyards, it would cripple Korthak military production for years. Captain Nari commanded the destroyer squadron that was leading the advance through the nebula. Her ships were designed to operate in the harsh environment, around Earth's sun, where solar flares could destroy unprotected vessels in seconds. "Captain, radiation levels are increasing," reported her sensor officer. "Most species would need to retreat to safe distance." "Most species did not evolve under a star that regularly tried to cook them," Captain Nari replied. "Maintain course and speed." Behind them, the main battle fleet followed through the radiation storm. Human ships had heavy shielding and redundant systems that allowed them to operate in conditions that would shut down other vessels. It was another advantage that came from evolving on a world that never stopped trying to kill them. The attack on Draktar began at dawn on the planet's main continent. The Korthak defenders detected the human fleet only minutes before the first missiles struck their orbital shipyards. "Impossible," breathed Admiral Korthak, the system commander. "No fleet can navigate through the Crimson Nebula. Our sensors showed no approaching vessels." His tactical officer was staring at his displays in shock. "Sir, human ships are emerging from the nebula in perfect attack formation. They are targeting all our construction facilities simultaneously." The battle that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the disaster at Draktar. In 4 hours, the humans destroyed shipyards that had taken decades to build. More importantly, they captured the Empire's most advanced ship designs and manufacturing techniques, but it was what happened next that truly terrified the Korthak Empire. Staff Sergeant Jinwoo led the boarding party that captured the main orbital command station. His Marines moved through the facility like hunters, using tactics that the Korthak defenders had never encountered. "They fight as a pack," reported one surviving Korthak officer. "Not like individuals seeking honor, but like predators working together to bring down larger prey." The human soldiers wore armor that allowed them to fight in hard vacuum, toxic atmospheres, and crushing gravity. They carried weapons designed to function in any environment, and they moved with the coordination of a species that had learned to hunt the most dangerous predators on their homeworld. "Surrender, and you will be treated according to galactic conventions," Staff Sergeant Jinwoo told the Korthak commander. "We do not surrender," the alien warrior replied, reaching for his weapon. 3 human Marines moved simultaneously, disarming and subduing the Korthak officer without killing him. It was done so quickly and efficiently that other defenders dropped their weapons rather than face the same fate. When news of Draktar reached Emperor Corvin, he realized that he was facing an enemy unlike any in Korthak history. These humans did not just fight differently. They thought differently. They treated war as a problem to be solved rather than a contest of individual strength. "Bring me every piece of intelligence we have on human space," he ordered his advisors. "I want to know everything about these creatures." What they found in their databases only made the situation worse. "My Emperor," reported his chief intelligence officer, "human space contains over 400 inhabited systems. Their population exceeds 50 billion. They have been expanding into previously unexplored regions for over a century. And their military strength? Unknown, but based on what we have seen, potentially vast. The fleet that destroyed Admiral Vector was designated as an expeditionary force, implying the existence of larger formations." Emperor Corvin felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The Korthak Empire had built its power by attacking weaker civilizations and avoiding stronger ones. Now they had attacked what they thought was a weak species and discovered it was actually more dangerous than anything they had ever faced, but it was too late to back down. Word of the Korthak defeats was spreading throughout their territory. Subject worlds were beginning to rebel. Client species were refusing to pay tribute. If the Empire showed weakness now, it would collapse from within. "Send word to all fleet commanders," the Emperor ordered. "Every ship, every warrior, every weapon we possess is to be moved toward human space. We will end this threat before it destroys us." The largest military mobilization in Korthak history began immediately. 5,000 warships started moving toward the outer rim, carrying 3 million warriors ready to fight and die for their empire. But they were heading toward an enemy that had been preparing for exactly this kind of war for longer than they realized. Humanity had learned the most important lesson of survival on a death world. When something tries to kill you, you kill it first, and you make sure it stays dead. The Korthak Empire was about to discover what happened when a death world species decided that you were a threat to their friends and family. The final battle would be fought not in the emptiness of space, but above the worlds that both species called home. The final confrontation began in the Korthak home system, where Emperor Corvin had gathered every ship his empire could build or steal. 5,000 warships surrounded the Imperial homeworld like a metal fortress, waiting for the humans to come. General Seokjin stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Soul's Vengeance, studying tactical displays that showed the enemy formation. He commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled, 1,500 ships carrying enough firepower to crack planets. "Sir, long-range sensors confirm enemy fleet strength," reported his intelligence officer. "Over 5,000 vessels, including their entire Imperial Guard fleet. Any signs of civilian evacuation from the planet?" "Negative, sir. Intelligence suggests the Emperor is using his own population as human shields, believing we will not attack civilian targets." General Seokjin's expression grew cold. The Korthak Empire had spent decades destroying civilian populations across the galaxy. Now their leader was hiding behind his own people, hoping human morality would protect him. "The Emperor is about to learn the difference between mercy and weakness," General Seokjin said quietly. "Begin the attack." The Battle of Korthak Prime was unlike anything in galactic military history. Instead of the massive ship-to-ship combat the Empire expected, the human fleet split into dozens of smaller formations that attacked from every direction simultaneously. Captain Wanho led a squadron of fast attack ships through the outer defensive perimeter while the main fleet engaged the Korthak battle line. His ships were small and maneuverable, designed to penetrate enemy formations and strike at weak points. "Remember, we are not here to conquer their world," he told his pilots over the communication system. "We are here to end their ability to threaten anyone else ever again." The human attack was precisely coordinated to minimize civilian casualties while maximizing military damage. Orbital bombardment strikes targeted only military installations, weapons platforms, and government buildings. Population centers were left untouched. Colonel Yuna commanded the ground assault forces, and her mission was the most dangerous of all: capture the Imperial Palace and force Emperor Corvin's surrender. Human dropships descended through the battle. In space, their armored hulls designed to survive in conditions that would destroy most atmospheric craft. "All teams, remember your training," she said as her ship approached the planet's surface. "Korthak warriors are individually stronger than humans, but they fight as individuals. We fight as a unit." The landing was opposed by the Imperial Guard, the Empire's most elite warriors. They were large, powerful beings who had never lost a battle on their homeworld. They expected to face the kind of honorable single combat that characterized most galactic warfare. Instead, they found themselves fighting humans who used every advantage their Deathworld evolution had given them. The Imperial Guards fought bravely, but they had never faced an enemy that treated warfare as a problem to be solved rather than a contest of personal strength. Human soldiers moved like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks to isolate and overwhelm individual enemies. "They do not fight with honor," protested General Vorthak, as his elite warriors were systematically defeated by smaller human forces. "They fight to win," replied Colonel Yuna as her troops surrounded the Imperial Palace. "There is a difference. In space, the battle was reaching its climax. The Korthak fleet, despite its numerical advantage, was being systematically destroyed by human tactics that treated entire battle groups as single weapons. Ships that had never known defeat were falling to coordinated attacks that came from directions they had never thought to defend. Admiral Dongmin commanded the final assault on the Emperor's flagship, a massive vessel that was more fortress than ship. The Korthak Supreme Commander had retreated to his most powerful warship, surrounded by his personal fleet of 300 vessels. "Sir, the enemy is maintaining defensive formation around their flagship," reported the tactical officer. "They appear to be preparing for a final stand." "Then we will give them one," Admiral Dongmin replied. "All ships concentrate fire on the Imperial flagship. End this war." The combined firepower of 100 human warships struck the Emperor's vessel simultaneously. Shields that had never been penetrated collapsed under the coordinated bombardment. Armor that had been designed to resist any single weapon failed against attacks from dozens of different directions. Emperor Corvin felt his great ship dying around him and realized that his empire was dying with it. In less than 6 months, humanity had gone from unknown species to the dominant military power in this region of the galaxy. "Open a communication channel to the human fleet," he ordered his communications officer with a voice filled with defeat. General Seok-jin's face appeared on the screen, and the Emperor saw in his eyes the same merciless efficiency that had characterized the entire human campaign. "Emperor Corvin, you will order the immediate surrender of all Korthak military forces. You will release all prisoners and slaves held throughout your territory. You will provide full reparations to every world your empire has damaged." "And if I refuse?" General Seok-jin gestured toward the tactical display, where the remnants of the once mighty Korthak fleet drifted in space like broken toys. "Then we will finish what you started when you threatened our friends." Emperor Corvan looked at the display showing his ruined fleet, his burning shipyards, and his defeated armies. The Korthak Empire had built its power through centuries of conquest and intimidation. Now it was ending in a few hours of combat against an enemy they had never understood. "We surrender," he said quietly. Commander Ju-hyun oversaw the surrender negotiations, and what she demanded shocked even experienced galactic diplomats. The humans did not want territory or tribute. They wanted guarantees that the Korthak Empire would never again threaten civilian populations. "You will reduce your military to defensive forces only," she told the assembled Korthak leadership. "You will submit to regular inspections by neutral parties. You will establish a fund to compensate the victims of your expansion campaigns." "These terms will destroy our empire," protested one of the Korthak generals. "Your empire destroyed itself when it decided to make war on peaceful civilians," Commander Ju-hyun replied coldly. "These terms will ensure it never happens again." The news of the Korthak surrender spread across the galaxy within days. Ancient civilizations that had watched the rise and fall of countless empires struggled to understand what they had witnessed. The humans had not conquered territory or enslaved populations. They had not demanded tribute or installed puppet governments. They had simply eliminated a threat to galactic peace and then offered to help rebuild what had been destroyed. Captain Wanho delivered the final message to the Galactic Council, speaking from the bridge of his ship as it prepared to return to human space. "The human species wants only to live in peace with our neighbors," he said to the assembled representatives of dozens of worlds. "We will trade with those who wish to trade. We will share knowledge with those who seek to learn. We will defend those who ask for protection." He paused and his expression grew serious. "But let no one mistake our desire for peace as a sign of weakness. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We survived by learning to work together, to adapt to any threat, and to fight with everything we had when fighting became necessary." The council chamber was completely silent as Captain Wanho continued. "The Volani Federation asked for humanitarian aid. We gave them that aid, and we also made sure that no one would ever again threaten them for seeking help. Any species that attacks peaceful civilians, enslaves populations, or threatens human allies will discover that we do not respond proportionally. We respond overwhelmingly." He stood up from his chair, and every being in the chamber could feel the quiet strength that had allowed humanity to defeat the most powerful military force in their region of the galaxy. "We are returning to our space now. The Korthak Empire has been neutralized. The Volani Federation is free, and galactic peace has been restored. We hope it remains that way." The message was clear to everyone who heard it. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as conquerors or diplomats, but as the species you called when someone needed to be stopped permanently. As the human fleet departed Korthak space, they left behind a galaxy that would never again underestimate the peaceful species from the outer rim. The Volani Federation began rebuilding their worlds with human assistance. The Korthak Empire accepted their reduced status and worked to pay reparations for their crimes. And throughout the galaxy, the message spread. If you needed help, you could call humanity. But if you threatened humanity or their friends, you would face the full fury of a species that had learned warfare on a death world where only the strongest, smartest, and most cooperative survived. The age of human influence in the galaxy had begun, built not on conquest or fear, but on the simple principle that when someone asked for help, humans answered the call with everything they had. Chancellor Thyra, now leading the restoration of her rebuilt civilization, sent one final message to Earth as the human fleet departed her space. "Thank you for answering our call for aid. We asked for medicine and received healing. We asked for food and received abundance. We asked for safety and received freedom.